Do you recognize this Undertale character? His name is Togore Dreemurr, the middle child of Asgore and Tutorial Dreemurr, brother to Asriel in Kara Dreemurr, and not to be confused with Rabindranath Tagore, which Google autocorrect really wanted me to. Hi again, guys, and over the last few months, I have come to deeply adore and love this completely made-up character, which I guess all characters are made up, but especially this one. Not just because seeing him in proximity to characters from a game I already love allowed him to inherit and suck up some of that affection via osmosis, though that certainly didn't hurt, but also because the outpouring of creativity, passion, and funny gags that other people in the fandom have also felt for him made his stock like skyrocket for me. Before I get ahead of myself, I should probably give a brief history of the Togore we know today, as the rabbit hole goes deeper than you might realize. This video doesn't have like a comprehensive list of things from Undertale/Deltarune I'll be spoiling or that I'm expecting you to know. I'm just gonna play it pretty fast and loose with the spoilers, because if you're deep enough into this rotting fandom that you recognize Togore by his silhouette, then I'm assuming you already know what happens in the game. A lot of people are under the impression that Togore is a recent gag, but he has a history almost as old as Undertale itself. Please, allow me to explain the joke, which means it's about to get even funnier. The Dreemurr parents, Asgore and Toriel, are notorious in-universe and in the fandom for being dog shit at naming things. For instance, the original capital city of the Underground in Undertale is where most people lived, so they just called it home. And when they made a new capital where most people would go to live, they're like, fuck it, let's call it New Home. The most egregious example, though, has to be the name of Asgore and Toriel's biological child, Asriel. In a vacuum, it sounds cool, but then you realize it's just his parents' names slapped together. The As from Asgore and Riel from Tutoriel, they just bashed their names together as a replica of the night Asriel was conceived. With As and Riel taken, all that's left are To and Gore, leaving a theoretical second Dreemurr kid with the name Togore. A cruel fate, something that people were quick to point out when they realized all this. Asriel might have bit the dust when he was just a kid, but he came into this world dodging bullets, so it was really only a matter of time, and thus people have been making that joke on and off for the last decade. Most recently, Togore came up again in reference to Chris from hit game Deltarune. Chris is something of a parallel to Kara from Undertale, obviously different, but the crossover exists. Notable differences, though, are that in Undertale, Kara is pretty often called the child of Toriel and Asgore by the monster public, and their connection to the Dreemurrs is described as a familial one. But if you ask the family themselves, they don't seem to agree, or at least they don't say it outright. Asriel always will only ever call Kara his friend, even if it's his best friend, or that he cares about Kara more than anyone else. They never call Kara their sibling. Asgore always calls Kara the human that fell, and Toriel calls Kara somebody or someone she used to know. Where on the other hand, everybody in Chris's life calls Toriel their mom, and Asriel their brother, and Asgore their dad. This isn't me saying that Kara was not part of the Dreemurr family, because functionally they were, like they fucking lived in their house and shared a room with their son, but rather that Kara came into the Dreemurrs' lives a lot later than Chris did. Kara already had a name and a life before meeting those goat monsters. Meanwhile, Chris was adopted young enough to not even realize they were a human, thinking they'd grow horns like the rest of their family. They'd had the Dreemurr name since a youngin', meaning there's a high likelihood the Dreemurrs had a chance to give this adopted child its first name as well. There wasn't like a good path or bad path of which name this kid was gonna get. That family had a second kid to name. The first kid already got the good one, and that family only knows how to name things one way. Asriel sounding good was a fluke, so that poor kid was about to be doomed for life. From @Blueberry21, but Togore, Chris, your name was already gender neutral? Yeah, but it fucking sucks. You probably deserve that, Toriel. To save that poor human baby, close friends of the Dreemurrs, the Holiday family, may have had to step in much like CPS, in order to protect Chris from the same fate as Sue from that one Johnny Cash song. You know, just not gendered in this case. Personal headcanon that Chris was named by the Holiday family because Dreemurrs suck at that, which actually lines up in a fun way, as the Holiday family has their own gay little naming quirk themselves. Every family member has to be Christmas themed. Noel, December, Rudolph, Chester, Carol, all Christmas puns. Toby Fox, I know what you are, in Dark World Raltsy in regards to Chester, with multiple members of the Holiday family actively seen calling Chris Christmas as a nickname all the time. And it's low-key the cutest shit ever. Well, jingle my gosh darn bells. It looks like Christmas came early. Like just seeing Chris is a joy worth celebrating. You are loved, never forget that, piss steamer. Carol watching Toriel about to name Chris Togore because Asriel is taken. While the Togore gag never really died in the 10 years since its birth, this most certainly gave it a resurgence in current year, and was part of a larger revival of this sweet little goat appearing right in front of the fandom's windshield, hitting the scene and our car around around the same time as this video.
Does anybody remember this Undertale character? His name is Togore Dreemurr, the middle child of Asgore and tutorial dreemurr.
Yes, I bit the intro for this video directly from that TikTok. How could I not? That video, if it didn't create them, certainly popularized some of the funnier, more tongue-in-cheek early lore about the character, like you can find him at Mettaton's resort, him being the third child in the trio of Dreemurr kids, and in Undertale being the only surviving one, as well as something that makes Toby Fox freak out whenever you mention him, which went on to be at least somewhat true. With that video spread, the community had a face to give to the name Togore, and it felt like a shitpost at first because of how strange looking he is, not to mention how strangely he's looking at us. This sprite is the most popular depiction of Togore to date, created by an artist named Chapstick, though it's often used interchangeably with this differently colored version of the sprite, and it serves as the main inspiration for most of the new versions of Togore that came after. Allegedly, Chapstick created the sprite for the Roblox game Chicho's Deltarune RP, but in a surprise twist of fate, much like its name, the legacy of Togore Dreemurr's face is almost as old as Undertale itself. For you see, before there was Chicho's Deltarune RP, there was a precursor, Chicho's Undertale RP. And spotted in the background of a video titled Showing Off the Game Pass Rooms in Chicho's Undertale Roleplay Will Re-Upload: P, that only has 2,000 views and was, for some reason, uploaded on the 15th anniversary of 9/11. At the timestamps 429, 437, 444, and probably several other points in the video, we can barely make out through single-digit amounts of pixels when zoomed in a vaguely familiar-looking face. No. Could that really be him? Through further digging into God knows where, people were able to find higher resolution versions of that same sprite in the Game Pass room from the video, confirming that this face indeed belongs to an early version of Togore. Through even further doohickying, people were able to find the original listing on the Roblox Creator Store, which still has a live link up to this day. This page confirmed the sprite existed as early as January 4th, 2016, and was uploaded by none other than Chicho Boy himself. I can't say if Chicho Boy was the one who made the sprite or if they had just uploaded someone else's work. That the good name and face of Togore has been around for damn near a decade, and most of us had no idea, which meant we had to make up for lost time. We needed to atone for 10 years of missed shitpost potential, and luckily the community had no shortage of inspiration they needed to drag this bit to hell. Said with love. Real quick though, before we continue, just a quick reminder that my G-Sups horror merch drop is only available for a few more days. On November 6th, it's gone forever. I worked with the incredible Enoch Odd Oblivion to create the art for all of these pieces, and I could not be happier with how it came out. The centerpiece is this wraparound shaker cup with an eldritch little freakazoid getting suffocated on the front, a desk-length mouse pad with an absolute behemoth ravaging the landscape it's looming over. In apparel, there's a double-sided skeleton shirt with just some gnarly-ass proportions and design going on that you might get looks for wearing in public, but only for the right reasons this time. And lastly is this awesome double-sided reversible parka with insane designs on both the inside and outside. One note on the clothes, they are oversized, so keep an eye on the size chart if you're interested in getting either of those. And you can get all of these items for 10% off for a limited time only at the first link in the description. And you know what, faggot, let me throw in a little incentive. If this goes well enough, we might be on our way to getting a flavor with G-Sups, so if that's something you want to see, your support would be much appreciated. Of course, the early treatment that Togore got was giving him a version of every joke the main cast members had already gotten. He got his very own fisheye angle, being Noel-ingified. God, that sounds like a worse fate than it actually is. Always bet on Togore being the knight. Togore has been off-screen because he's secretly been mic'd this whole time, that sort of thing. To me, it almost felt like earlier fan art of Togore would made a point to preserve the otter qualities of that OG sprite by Chapstick. That thing is just kind of weirdly proportioned, it's bug-eyed when it stares at you, it's similar enough to the Asriel sprite it's an edit of to feel familiar, but also for you to notice the differences that make it feel undeniably off-putting. People took the unsettling demeanor as a main point of inspiration and exaggerated it when they started making Togore do things we'd never seen a Togore do before. Jim Jam at Mason Marmalade altered his version of a front-facing Togore by making the eyes slightly offset from each other. And when he tread ground I'd never seen a Togore artist walk before, he turned that bitch sideways, 90 degrees clockwise, and suddenly we were given a bunch of new information just from the one angle alone. As Jim Jam sees it, Togore has nerd neck. he's an implied gamer. Not only does he have like a pasta noodle looking spine, but in what may or may not be an intentional parallel to Ralsei, this motherfucker is surprisingly prim and proper, walking with his hands behind his back like he's Count Dooku. Tricky Troy had another stylized take on Togore, which I quite enjoyed. In the full color drawings we see on the right, we can see that piercing glare of Togore's present from the front as well as in the side profile, with that bug-eyed, extruding oculars aesthetic. And we have the added addition of giving this little demon a knife, just like his human siblings across the multiverse. Ignore the face on the left over there. Don't look at it too closely. It gets more detailed the longer you do, and the more you'll start to panic. And while everyone has their own spins on Togore, it felt like core design features somehow still shined through a bunch of different interpretations of the dude. That sprite most people based their designs off of was really sharp and angular. It's perfectly symmetrical, unlike a lot of official sprites from both Deltarune and Undertale. And one thing separating Togore from almost every Undertale character, other than being made up, is a complete lack of a talk sprite for him. Toby Fox's overworld sprites, while plenty expressive at many points, do leave a lot of blanks for your brain to fill in, and the most supplementary material you get to flesh out a more detailed version of these characters' appearances and ways of emoting were their battle sprites and their talk sprites. Togore doesn't have any of that shit. We've got one blank slate of a sprite to interpret Togore from, which results in him, even compared to, I would say, most of the official cast, having some of the most recognizable shape language out of any of them. It's so good that you can recognize him with some of the simplest AC art you can make of any Undertale or Deltarune character. I think he's still somewhat recognizable with even less characters than used here. To prove it, I wrote it out on one line of this script. The notable exception of a character who you can recognize more simply is Frisk, who literally just takes like these 3 lines. Like, it solos anybody else because it's literally pressing the same key 3 times to get this look. But Frisk is also the only character in the games with a single expression, that being an overworld sprite when they face forward. No battle or dialogue sprites to speak of. Even Chris moves their mouth around every now and then. Of course, other sprites of Togore do exist. There's tons that carry the spirit of the original, like this one from Seb Draws, where they ask, what if this dude actually looked like he was from Undertale instead of like a dude who would kill you with a single thought? Whereas others put a different spin on it, like Reese Reeserson, who made a sprite attempting to adhere to the original role-playing game sprite as best as they could, which I think came out rather well. I could go through countless examples like this, but the through line would be that Togore's core design shines through distractingly well across a bunch of different ways he's been portrayed. And this is all me just pulling things purely from the visuals. What gets you a better handle on a character's personality is how they interact with others in the world around them. I'd say one of the earlier things that were submitted as a quote-unquote Togore personality trait was, Togore loves to say, Togore-tastic. This motherfucker's got a catchphrase. And therefore, another marketable thing for people to remember him by and to caption any art they make of him with. Character to character though, some of my favorites have gotta be Togore's interactions with Chris, both as shitpost and heartfelt moments. I'll save the jerking your tears out of your eyes for later, but for now, have this thing by @RatPower on Twitter, who took a short break from drawing Undyne every day to depict Chris and Togore as little kid siblings acting like dumb little kid siblings. I'm sorry Asriel and I took all the letters from Mommy and Daddy. Maybe Mommy and Daddy don't like you that much. Chris is just the spitting image of the monkey getting yelled at by the lion here. Now, I don't view this art as part of my idea of Togore as a character specifically. The cool part of him not existing in any official capacity at all is you're allowed to pick and choose and do whatever you want with him. It's kind of fucking awesome. Everybody has a different version in their head. The joke here just works for me in a vacuum since it's over the top, ties into that idea of Togore's name maybe once upon a time having been Chris's name, and because it can act as a hyperbolized version of a character trait Togore has had put onto him in a lot of other places. Have some patience, I said I'd do the heartfelt stuff later. Enough of that though, I want to know what the kid actually likes. Chris likes knives and practical jokes. Asriel likes religious ska and was an aspiring game dev. Kara likes chocolate and has an obsession with completionism. And according to Comics Guy, Togore is a big fan of the show Ridiculousness.
You mind if I put on Ridiculousness? Can you call Rob Dyrdek right now, please?
they are using this motherfucker and rolling him around like a rock for shitposts, man. Again, you get to pick and choose what's real about Togore to you. He can like Rob Dyrdek if you really want him to. What I would ask is, what would he be like if he was present in the story? What if he is present in the story, but there's like a reason we just don't see him? Why would it be like that? Some people posit that from his in-universe creation, Togore was never intended to be in the world, but through sheer force of will and love for his family, forced his way into it all the same. This is a theory the community has come to dub abortion theory. It's based off this TikTok with, you know, the GIF playing on the screen. I'd read the caption, but we're gonna read the Togore version instead to save time. Asgore and Torio, when they accidentally open a dark world, and the fetus they aborted 20 years ago is all grown up and excitedly tries to re-enter the world that never wanted it. It's obviously more jokes than serious conjecture or thought. I mean, for Christ's sakes, if this was true, it would practically destroy the timeline. But it's very clear that plenty of people out there don't want Togore to be a part of this world's narrative. I mean, why else would someone depict him as dead and decaying in a trash can? Thanks for that, Clementine. I really needed that to be in my life at any point. It didn't make me sad at all. God, why are you making me feel attached to this little fucking homunculus? He's not even real in the context of the game. Getting attached to him is just setting myself up to be hurt later. Speaking of, the first Togore media I ever saw that made me actually grieve for him was this write-up based off the Goner Kid dialogue from Undertale, also by Jim Jam. Togore is sitting on the same dock Goner Kid once did, over pitch black waters and under pitch black sky. He says to somebody, maybe himself, to us, or maybe to no one at all, have you ever thought about a world where everything is exactly the same, except you don't exist? Everything functions perfectly without you. The thought really doesn't bother me. Well, not anymore. Togore, conceptually, is even more absent from the world of Undertale than Goner Kid is. Sure, Goner Kid might not actually have anything to do with the function of Undertale's world or story, but he actually had a chance to exist in a real version of that world, even if it was only like 10% of the time, and he could be easily missed by just about anybody who didn't already know to look. Togore didn't even get that chance. He started as a joke created by us, the outside observers of his world. Not that world's god, not someone in it, just its watchers. And therefore, Togore, as our creation, also has to exist outside of it. Doomed to never be a part of the universe he was imagined as a part of. And yet Togore here is at peace with that all the same, more than Goner Kid ever was. Why? You know, other than the author writing it like that. Maybe part of it is that the fandom who birthed him were doing everything in their power to give him a shot at some sort of existence, even if it could never be a canon one. We, yes we, wanted to give him a chance to be real. If nowhere else, then at least in our collective imaginations. Even if it did started with those in-jokes of Togore being in the game all the way to the right of MTT Resort, even if the whole joke started as, remember this guy you know doesn't exist? Well, he does now, because we said so. Togore is a blank slate that we have to ascribe a personality to if we want him to do anything at all. We were not going to be given sublime character writing handed to us pre-made. Y'all gonna put in the work yourselves, and some of y'all certainly did that. It was a type of iterative design where there were no hard rules, just a bunch of cooks in the kitchen all inspiring each other, adding new quirks based on vibes and what came before. Until we got far enough into wanting more for him, we had to shake off this original idea of how could he neatly fit inside the existing narrative. If we wanted to see this boy truly thrive, we would have to bend the story to our whims and make something new out of it. After all, of course we did. Like I said already, Undertale and Deltarune are stories Togore can't ever truly be a part of, because if he was, it would be a different story altogether. A Togore-tastic Visit by Ballgame Lover 1997. Hey Kara, I came to visit you. I hope that's okay. It's been a while. I don't remember when I last visited you. Might have been when I was still a kid. Now I'm an adult. I wish I got to spend more time with you. I know how much Asriel loved you. Mom and Dad, too. I wish I could have felt the same about you. But we never did end up spending any time together at all. And now it's too late for that. With you and Asriel gone. Even me visiting you right now. It feels weird. I wonder. Did you even consider me as your sibling? Or was that just Asriel? I wish I knew. I wish I knew, so that I could love you the same way, too. Togore has an endless amount of interpretations that have been shared with the world, and they all have a habit of stacking on top of each other, building off one another, adding new details to someone's personal vision of Togore the character based off what came before. A process that may repeat endlessly, or at least until the hyperfixation runs its course. But even where it's hard to see the edges of all the pieces that form Togore's whole, there's a kind of split in my personal perception of the character, which is no doubt influenced by the more popular ways of depicting Togore in specific contexts, but I still feel it all the same. In my mind, the common idea of a hypothetical Togore from Undertale places him squarely into a role where he gets to have suffering inflicted onto him. In all circumstances, he would be the only dreamer child left alive, racked with grief over his dead siblings, mourning the connection he had with Asriel, and perhaps even mourning the connection he never got to have with Kara. All at the same time. On top of that, he's left with the responsibility of the throne coming down completely to him as he's its only surviving heir, all while his father stokes an age of renewed anti-human sentiment and warmongering fervor spreads through the underground. A status quo Asgore expects Togore to take charge of one day, but that's really only if he ends up sticking around with Asgore for all of that. How does this kind of tragedy affect Toriel and Asgore's divorce when they still have a living child left in the middle? Is Togore forced to pick between one ideology and never see the other parent again based on the choice? Do his parents force him into one camp or the other, with them fighting over custody, maybe through court systems or violently? Or does he just get left behind altogether, forgotten by both parents as like bigger forces than a family unit could ever deal with internally become all too real? Forgotten by both parents in their grief, just like in the real story, except this time he's around to experience what it's like to be forgotten. The obvious rebuttal to all this is that bad things happening doesn't mean the good times never existed. The love that Togore felt for his family was still real in this universe, even if it's over now. And they may not have known Kara well, but they knew that Kara loved affectionately pushing down on the soft spot of both of their brothers' heads. And sure, that's all true, but his existence in the narrative I'm painting is one of pure stress, and it makes the depressing world of canon Undertale almost seem like more merciful by comparison, where Togore doesn't need to exist as a character with the designated role of worst life ever. Like, imagine in a genocide run, God forbid, the idea of Togore being the only dreamer family member left, because tragedy after tragedy has taken everyone he loved from it, not just his siblings, but his parents too, the women and children. He is now thrust into the role of king of the underground with no experience, grieving himself, and now forced to govern a devastated and severely diminished population. With the way motherfuckers write about him in Undertale, it's hard not to feel like the world we're creating for him is out to get him specifically. And chances are, if you're writing Togore angst, you are out to get him. I know I'm just writing fan fiction, but we have been the entire time. Surprised you just noticed. Meanwhile, when Togore is depicted in like a Deltarune setting, it can almost make the canon of that game seem like a doomed timeline by comparison. Sure, Hometown is just a generally less depressing place than the Underground, so like of course it's better on the surface, Dark Worlds notwithstanding. But where to me Undertale feels almost like it's having mercy on Togore by not including him in the base game, that his soul need not have existed just to suffer in the way all Monsters Underground did. Togore's absence in Deltarune almost feels like a punishment to the cast of that game. When coming back to canon after seeing how Togore could have fit into all of it, people have pointed out it makes the original story feel like a faulty universe that is incomplete without him. Like something is missing and the world is worse off for it. People came up with scenarios like, do you think Chris felt comforted by the fact that Togore doesn't have horns like them? And what could have easily been a design quirk no one really thought about becomes a 3-page comic by @TheDankWave about how Togore has his own way of making Chris feel like truly a part of the Dreamer family, where Chris might not ever grow horns, but neither will Togore, and they don't need to be the same to be a family. Gum008 has been putting out some incredibly cute comics of Togore's dynamic with the Dreamers from all over their lives, like meeting Chris as a baby, thinking they're gross and ugly as babies often are, before becoming won over by Chris and coming to love their new infant sibling, nurturing and spending time with the little prick. Jumping to Chris learning how to speak as they become a real person, refusing to call Togore by their first name, insisting on calling them Toto no matter how much Togore protests. When Chris realizes they're different than the rest of the family, that they're a human who will never grow horns, managing to find comfort comfort and belonging by empathizing with Togore over their shared lack of them. So one day, Togore actually does get his horns overnight, and Chris, having ditched the plastic ones ages ago, feels a way that Togore decided to break rank with their solidarity and just start growing them in all of a sudden. The prick. In another, Togore is an adult working at Asgore's flower shop. The Dreemurr divorce still happened, but even with Asriel off to college, Chris still has a big brother who they've been able to count on in different ways than Asriel, who's still around to partake in the cycle of life with them. And in the last one of Gum 008's comics I'd like to highlight, Chris in another world feels Togore's presence when he's nowhere to be found. The hole that he's left in their family is undeniable to them. They just don't know what it is. The common theme I'm going to be bringing up is that Togore being around isn't some sort of instant fix for everything wrong in the Dreemurr house or the world at large. The bad things still happen, but him being there makes him and the people around him feel like the bad things are just a bit more manageable. He's able to fill in some of the emotional gaps that, like, not all the characters in base Deltarune are capable of handling, because we get to write him that way. And this is all just within the Dreemurr household. The effects ripple wide throughout Hometown. There's funny little interactions the artist Cardboardian has given Togore with, like, the wider ensemble of Deltarune, like saying Birdly fucking sucks to be around. But let's be honest, this video would not be complete without me talking about the most fleshed out and influential take on Togore and his role in a Deltarune universe. I'm of course talking about the comic Togore Time by Migs Perez. That's Migs Bozon, or at Old Bungus on Twitter, I'm pretty sure. This thing is fucking incredible. Off rip, my shape language psychosis comes back to haunt me. The logo with Togore's eyes and snout as the O and G in his name is so fucking slick. The comic jumps around from the timeline, just sharing vignettes of Togore's life in Hometown and the wide range of characters in it. And Togore is truly the protagonist of this comic. He's rarely playing a support role to an existing Deltarune character, and is instead crucial to its function. And by God, does it feel like this world wants Togore to be in it. For one, Migs' art of the canon Deltarune cast feels very stylized. Meanwhile, Togore looks like he's been damn near unchanged. The art is drawn in a way that captures Togore's features and proportions really faithfully to that kind of half-joke design we've all been using, without it feeling out of place around all these pre-existing fleshed-out characters we already know and love. In a weird way, it's almost like the world has twisted itself to make Togore's presence seem more at home, like it belongs more in it, and like it truly wants him to be alive and thriving inside of that world. The first few entries in the comic are small slice-of-life stories. In the first one, an older December holiday is at the park with Chris, Noelle, and Togore, but Togore is noticeably more withdrawn, enthralled more by a book he's reading than any shenanigans Chris and Noelle are getting up to. Des notices this and decides to engage Togore where he's at, asking him about the bugs he shares an eye shape with, before predictably needing to take care of some bullshit Chris is doing to Noelle, like probably dipping her in like a vat of tar. Oh, she scrums so loud. This can read like, and might certainly have felt like it did to Togore, that he was getting sidelined as a result of this though. But it's nothing like that, because in this world, Togore is loved, and as soon as that shit is dealt with, Des is right back to wanting to hear about all the bug facts Togore is reading up on, and even has information of her own to shoot back at him that's very in character for her to know, like worms that can cause mind control, to truly relate back to him. In the second entry, the Dreemurr family is out at QC's diner getting some grub, and Toriel is very pleased when Togore remembers to say his pleases and thank yous. The one criticism she has is to remember to make eye contact, and even if Togore shows it in his own odd ways, he cares deeply about the people around him and what they ask of him. So he makes the earnest effort the next time it comes up, and the results are mixed. Yeah, we all felt this way when we first looked into Togore's eyes. Strong discomfort, and then immediately followed by like a strong parental urge to protect him. Toriel is in much the same position here. There's other small little moments fleshing out his character, like him and Birdly apparently gaming together. Some of the more recent entries have been similarly gag-focused, but are still worth a read, as they all give extra little bits of characterization to this version of Togore. But everything I've shown you up till now is just pretext for the absolutely heart-tugging run of Togore Time entries 3 through 5. It's in these entries that Migs does some witchcraft and pulls together a lot of seemingly disparate tidbits of community inside jokes and fan interpretations, things that all seem very separate and hard to like put into like a cohesive whole, and decides to weave them into a cohesive whole. Entry 3, Howdy Cowboy, uses the canon material that Asgore had a favorite show about cowboys that he used to love to watch with his kids when they were younger as its baseline. And in Migs' version of the show, the friend inside the TV loves to say, "Today's gonna be cowboy-tastic." And as a young, earnest, impressionable impressionable little autist, Togore can't help himself, and he just starts saying Togore-tastic as his own little spin, and it's fucking adorable, dude! The family can be seen eating it up in Tenna's reflection, where they're all having a good time just repeating it over and over again, really just creating formative memories, until suddenly, Togore is the only one left sitting in front of the TV, and it's very clear that, yes, this is only a memory. Time has passed, Azrael is in college, Toriel and Asgore are long divorced, and the kids have to visit their dad if they want to see him, which not all of them have been doing, it seems. Asgore's just down on his luck, but even still cares for his family deeply, all when he's never felt farther from them, having to ask after their well-being whenever he gets the chance, and sadly, asking how Togore, the one right in front of him, is doing dead last. But in these weird lives, they are all living more distantly than ever from each other. Togore busts out the classic, Togore-tastic, and after just a moment, Asgore can't hold it together, bursting out, just laughing. Soon enough, Togore can't help it either. He's just enjoying himself, swinging his arms and singing with his pops like the old days. For 1 second, it's not just a memory, it's another thing they just do sometimes. Nothing is fixed, nothing has been solved, but in that moment, just for that moment, whoever he and his father have become is enough, because they got each other. Seeing these comics as they dropped has always been a delight, and it only got crazier as it got more elaborate. The short ones were great as they were. They had comedic gags that still managed to flesh out aspects of Togore and the way he talked with people, but that way Miggs went on to tie in fandom-based shit into one world that displayed a dangerous ability to tug at your heartstrings was something else entirely. So when these next two comics dropped, I'm sure for some people it was truly on par with a personal 9/11. Entry 4, the Hometown Cryptid Club, sees siblings Chris and Togore visiting Noelle at the holiday residence for an information exchange of like the illicit shady kind. Chris is saying this is some real snuff room stuff, organ trade type shit, while Togore calls them full of shit the whole walk through the house, but it's a mystery all the same. The type of thing that requires getting eyewitness accounts, a mystery that another holiday household member would find all too interesting. And speak of the devil, Des? Is it really you? Smash cut to present. The split on is it really you between the past and current day really gets me. And between then and now, it doesn't seem like much has changed for Togore. He's still researching local mysteries with a passion, but this time, the cryptid he's looking for is a lot closer to home. He's trying to find out what happened to someone he knew. Someone who growing up always nurtured his interest and wanted to truly make him feel included. A friend who one day was just gone. Togore is analytical and observant. He tracks things down, especially when they don't want to be found. So what's someone like that to do when someone important in your life disappears with no explanation? What would that obsession to find them do to someone like Togore? Well, perhaps it would lead them to commiserate with maybe the one other person who's still missing her just as much, just as openly. From Holiday Girl 1225. Find anything? Not yet, but I'll keep looking. They might not know much about what happened, but they have each other as they go through it. There's a lot I can say about this comic, but it can all also pretty much be said about the centerpiece of this series so far. Entry 5, here. This shit is like 20 pages. It's a genuine, full-length comic book entry release, and it punches your gut very liberally. I'm telling you now, you should read this full series, but if you don't read the full comic, this entry in particular is very worth the time. We start at a holiday family photo shoot where Des gets into an argument with her mom, probably one of many, before storming off the set. Noelle tries to keep the peace to no avail, trying to say it was her fault, only to be told to be good instead, where Carol goes off to argue with her daughter, and Des says, "I'm not your little peon, Mom." The tension feels like it's ratcheting up, but luckily, we have a true hometown hero to save the day, Chester Holiday, who can't help but diffuse this tension, saying, peon Mom? Okay. And no one can keep it together after that. Des is laughing, Rudy is damn near making the situation worse, and not even Carol can keep a straight face. Until it's just Noelle who's really left moping. But Des is there to comfort her, to be there when she cries, as she always is. Until she isn't. Fast forward to Deltarune canon, or at least where the timeline would be in Deltarune canon. Togore and Noelle are getting supplies for a stakeout mission, but Noelle insists they hit the road sooner than later for reasons completely unrelated to one Susie Deltarune. The pair find themselves at the lake for their recon mission and start to make conversation, where Noelle can't help but ask about Chris, who she's feeling distant from, only to find out Togore is in the same boat. Still, the Hometown Cryptid Club has their mission. They are here to discover the Song of the Lake, but that also means means they have time to kill, and therefore Noelle has time for her mind to wander. There used to be more people in this club. Hell, it felt like half the damn town used to be around for these events, but now it's just her and Togore, and Birdley if he counts. Asriel's left for college, Chester is on the other side of the world, teaching English and being a weeb. Chris is around technically, but might as well be a ghost for how present they actually feel, and Des has just disappeared completely. Noelle can't help but think about those days past, on why she acted how she acted back then, thinking it was because it was most convenient for everyone else around her, just for it all to be for nothing when none of those people are left. It's a spiral I can't help but think that canon Noelle has had a million times. Alone in her room, zoned out in class, but the truth is, even if it's less than before, two people is still company, and Togore is still there. There to be the blunt instrument she just might need to shock her out of her spiral. Everything would be perfectly fine without me if I just... You hate that drink. What? No, I'm good. You've barely touched it. Plus, every time you take a sip, you make a face like this. I like all the flavors, so give me that and find a flavor you like. Thanks, Togore. Of course, we're a team, so... Oh my god, that's disgusting. Wait. What flavor is this? Ice Energy Pepperoni Freeze? And while they have each other, in this moment, not everything is fixed, nothing is solved, but everything is okay. Just for that moment. God, this comic has made my mind race more than it has any reasonable right to. I've taken so many little details from it as pieces to add to my personal Togore Deltarune collection. I love the idea that Togore-tastic was some shit he said as a kid that the entire family thinks back fondly on, even if he's a little embarrassed by it now. I love the idea that he just carries headphones around everywhere to drown out the world around him and make immersing himself in his own world a little easier. I love that he's real on the nose about shit, but clearly cares deeply about his loved ones all the same. I love the idea of him and Noelle finding companionship in each other as both of their siblings seem to get further and further away from them as they all grow older. The more time passes, the farther everyone gets, but even still, just because life as you knew it is coming to an end, that doesn't mean life itself has to be over. Now, everything we've been talking about now has been like fan works, just fan fiction, you might say. But Togore got as close to being immortalized in a world never meant for him as he could in the Undertale 10th anniversary livestream. Ahead of the stream, Toby Fox revealed that as part of the charity incentives, they would be taking suggestions for what to make the player name for the stream from the replies of one of Toby's tweets. Additionally, the name could be changed during stream at every save point in the game, meaning the chosen suggestions would be fighting it out all throughout the stream itself, not just ahead of time. Toby practically told people to form military alliances around their favorite options, and trust there was a pitched battle over who the winner would be. A lot of people thought of this as their one chance to get Toby to acknowledge the names of characters like Gaster or Frisk or Kara in official capacity, and by far the most popular ones were Togore and Gaster. Togore, as the community in-joke, was at an all-time peak, so just the will of that side of the fandom, and Gaster was the character people had been most commonly going into psychosis over the last decade because of. And truth be told, if you can believe it, it started a bit of a controversy. There were just folk out there who thought the name Togore was outright disrespectful to those in the fandom who had been waiting for years to get fed new information on the parts of the game they'd never managed to get out of their heads, which I think is a perfectly valid thing to want. Even if I was personally Team Togore and was fighting for that side of the battle tooth and nail up until the stream itself, I definitely understand the frustration. And by no means was the competitive aspect all bad. Of course, we got some banger fucking art and animation out of the community's infighting, like we do anytime we have a hissy fit to throw. I say this like I've ever produced anything in that vein. And it turned out, as the stream drew near, the Gaster versus Togore infighting was all for nothing, because it was revealed that names like Gaster and Frisk were disqualified because they started non-standard versions of the game, like Undertale Hard Mode or just straight up restarting it, which likely would have broken the entire modified stream. So the two left to do battle were Togore and Kara. The fallen human's name would be changed at save points depending on which name currently had more money donated to it. So throughout the runtime of both streams, the names switched from Togore to Kara back and forth over and over again up until almost the very end. And I'm not gonna lie, it was cute as shit to imagine the stream as just two siblings fighting over whose turn it is to use the controller. It's part of that like imagination shit I'm talking about, man. It just makes me feel unnecessarily warm inside. Togore maintained a pretty strong lead for most of the stream, but Toby eventually put his thumb on on the scales, encouraging people to vote for Kara so that the last part of the game had their name being used. Some people interpreted this as like he would probably rooted against whoever the current person winning was, but some people even think he donated his own money to give the win to Kara. And truthfully, I don't really mind if he did, because one, the fan art that came out of it made me laugh, and also because as much as I was Team Togore going into this stream, I just wanted him to get acknowledged. I didn't need him to dominate the whole thing. And let's be honest, Kara being the name used by the time the Asriel boss happens, with the new dialogue expanding on the existing story telling the tragedy of those two, hits so much harder with Kara as the true name in play. After all, it's a story Togore can't be a part of. If he was, you'd have to write a different one altogether. Near the end of the stream, despite all the funny jokes about how Toby hates Togore and wanted Kara to win because that's his favorite little guy, Tony Dogg's closing remarks were some comments on how he views creativity, and how despite all the new areas showcased on stream being more of a facade of new content than actual new stuff, this was the truth he envisions.
About the new areas, it's basically just a what if, but this what if was always there. It never wasn't there and it will never not be there. Every monster has to have a place to go home to. Every monster has to have friends. They have to something to eat, somewhere to go hang out. The underground is a wide place. The only limit to all of this is your imagination. My goal with these days wasn't to show you a new hidden truth you will never be able to access. My goal is to remind you that you have always been able to go, if you just hold the key of asking what's there, what's under the bridge, what's beyond the horizon. Maybe you guys feel only my answer to these questions counts or matters, but to me I only feel the opposite. This is just one interpretation. The underground is as big as you want it to be, and I invite you to come behind the wall with me.
Everything about that stream and what went into it tie into the message it tries to share, and are all things I think Togore is like an exceeding embodiment of. Letting your own imagination being the only thing stopping how you can interact with the art you love. Creating new made-up places for the little creatures in your mind to inhabit, using something existing as a springboard into something new. The credits gave special thanks directly to the Undertale modding team, where members of the community were deeply involved with the creation of that stream. Programming was being done by some legendary names in the community, with the likes of Behold Maxine, creator of the superb Ribbit Deltarune mod, and Spasco, the lead programmer on Undertale Yellow, among others. These were creatives who used Toby Fox's work as the basis to be a part of making a new story with new places and characters to meet. They used an existing universe to make a new thing out of it. Things that gained their own fandoms around the creations that they made off of Toby Fox's work. And they were able to come back and work on something celebrating the game that inspired them, and that aims to encourage those watching to be inspired to do the same thing they did. Create. And in the small way that the wider community was able to have a hand in the 10th anniversary stream's identity, it almost felt like Togore being the name at certain points was our way of contributing in that same vein. It was suitable that it ended with Kara as like bringing it full circle to where everything began, but the game inspired us to make a fake guy who got to be a part of that same celebration. The stream's final moments are Togore's big brother Asriel asking you one last question. The world is as big as you want it to be. Where will you go next? I just fucking love this little guy. Anyways, this has been Kwite, and I'll see y'all next time.